Thank you. All right, I have 9 o'clock. So, good morning. I am Mario Gangemi, the chair of the MDTA Capital Committee, and conducting this morning's meeting. I hereby call the meeting of the Capital Committee to order at 9 a.m. In accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being conducted via video conference and live streamed on the MDTA Capital Committee page. I will point out that member Enzer is having technical difficulties, so is participating via telephone. All members of the Capital Committee will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting, with noted exception. To minimize the background noise, do ask that when you are, everyone that's on here, keep your computers, phones muted. When you are presenting, though, please turn your video and audio on, and then when you are done, you can turn your video off and put your audio on mute. There are no members of the public or elected officials or media that have registered to comment on today's meeting, so we can move on to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of the open session meeting minutes of August the 4th, 2022. So I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Member Cox.
Second.
Member Cox motions, Member Enzer seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, I got it.
Aye.
I saw you say aye, so all right, great. So
Reading.
the open session meeting minutes of August 4th, 2022 are unanimously approved. So now we can move on to item number 2, which is MR 3021-0000, the on-call building systems repairs. Min Zhang will be talking to us about that. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ms. Chairman and the Capital Committee members. This is Min Zheng, the MDTA OEC Facilities Project Manager. Today, I'm going to present contract MR-3021, the on-call building system repairs. This contract will provide labor, equipment, and the materials necessary in performing miscellaneous building system repairs, upgrades, replacements, and new constructions, as directed by the MDTA project manager, in an on-call or work order basis manner at all MDTA facilities. Work will focus on specialty building systems, which includes but not limited to the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm, security, automation systems, communication IT, elevators, utilities, and hazard materials removal. The contract was advertised on March 8, 2022, and the bid opening was June 10, 2022. The anticipated construction NTP is this coming November, and the construction duration is 1,825 calendar days. The overall MBE goal for this contract is 12% with no sub-goals. The VSBE goal is 1%. The goals submitted by the lowest bidder to MDTA exceeds these requirements, and their MBE plan has been approved by MDTA Civil Rights and Fire Practices. The engineer estimate for this contract was $5,500,000, which is also stated in the contract IFV book as the not to exceed award amount. We received the single bid from Nichols Contracting with a bid amount $6,753,385, which is 23% higher than the engineer estimate. There is no bid protest, and the contract is 100% funded by the toll revenue. The bid justification has been prepared and completed by the OEC project manager, and it could also be found in the meeting information attachment. Nichols Contracting has previously successfully performed the work for other state and local agencies in Maryland. And they are also currently working on another MDTA on-call contract, MR 3019, for facility repairs. So we are seeking recommended approval from the Capital Committee to present this contract to the full MDTA board for award the contract to Nichols Contracting. And thank you for your time. We will be glad to answer any questions the committee members may have.
All right,
Chairman.
go for it, Member Cox.
I guess obviously with this 23% higher than the engineer's estimate, this is the single only bid that was received from being advertised as stated by yourself. No other contractor bid or tried to bid on this project, on the single bid project.
Yes. In fact, if you look at the bid justification memo, there is a history about the bidding process. At the first beginning, the contract was designated as SBR contract back in March. And before the bid opening, we could tell that there's only single bid that in the that will submit the bid to the project. So procurement send another addendum just to remove the SBR designation and extend the bid opening for another several weeks, and hopefully to give the opportunity to other bidders to consider the contract. But eventually we still ended up with the single bid.
Still only ended up with a single bid even after trying to go out and obtain more bids. Is that correct?
Good morning. This is Donna, Director of Procurement, Member Cox.
Hi, Donna.
Just want to jump in and assist. We did, as is customary, we look at the bid box before bid due date and time. And when this was designated as an SBR, we noticed 30 minutes before that there was a single bid. So what we do is we extended it for 2 more weeks and give an opportunity for those who didn't bid to submit a bid. We also send out no bid request form to find out why bidders did not bid on this solicitation, and we've received 0 responses. At that point, we took it back to PRG, removed the SBR in the hopes for competition, but we were not successful in that realm.
Do we often have a few bids on the SBR designation?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I said, is that often the case where you have few bids under the SBR designation?
So no, not typically. We have no idea why there was little interest in this solicitation.
Well, I can tell you some ideas. I got some ideas, but what kind of jobs are we doing here? First of all, you're not building on a new building. You're doing like kind of emergency type repairs in various facilities. Is that what it is? Something that can't wait?
Yeah, it's a building related repair on-call contract. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, with this inflation, with this contract running for 5 years, how do you know what your labor costs are going to be? Maybe in 1 year you could figure it out now, but 5 years, I can't imagine. And you're bidding labor dollars, right? You're just putting, carpenter so many dollars an hour, or plumber, whatever it is. That's challenging right there, I would say.
Well, let me ask.
Materials too,
Materials may be more real on that because they're probably prevailing wages, and those prevailing wages should hold for that entire contract.
Is there prevailing wages on there?
Am I correct in saying that's prevailing wages?
Yes, I see Jeff has his hand up. Jeff?
Oh, I see that now.
Yes, thank you so much. I've learned to let the project manager, cover it because they always have the details. But I wanted to clarify a statement that Donna said. After we removed the SBR, we did direct solicit a lot of our, contracting firms that we are familiar with, the general contractors, and we did get some feedback from them that they wouldn't pursue this scope of work, or due to COVID, they've scaled back the amount of contracts that they are willing to pursue. And I just wanted to clarify that we did eventually hear back from some of the vendors when we sent out no bid notices.
What do the prevailing wages look like? They're just the typical ones we've been using this year? Or is it less for building trades or than heavy construction? Or?
Right. I think we were using what we have been using before, but we added some certain amount of percentage on top of that to try to balance the marketing conditions now. So it varies by trades.
Okay.
I mean, I think Member Gaines is on to something though. I mean, when it is 5 years, maybe the prevailing wage would hold, but anything material wise, all bets are off, I suspect.
Right. The labor rate is based on unit price, and the material is a lump sum. So yeah, it's really up to the contractor. I would say that.
Yeah, but your price. What you're saying is you'll price the materials when you buy this stuff, right? When you know what you got to do, right? So
Yeah.
So they can't get hurt by that. But
no, the labor rate is the unit price they need to submit it when they submit the bid. Yeah.
So they're picking the price or trying to pick it. So it's not. I guess they're going to be above prevailing wage, but.
Yeah.
Overhead on top of that and everything. So.
Any other questions or thoughts or motions to approve?
Yeah, I'll get it done in about 3.5 minutes.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, Member Gaines
Reservations.
moves to approve.
I'll second it.
Member Cox seconds. I will say, ask for an aye if you are in favor of this.
Aye.
We got
Aye.
aye. Member Enzer?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I thought I heard you. Okay, sounds good. All right, and I'll finish that out to make it unanimous. So, thank you. A little bit of a tough. Got you on the hot seat today, but
No. That's Thank you.
See, 23%. It kind of makes us concerned. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to a presentation on the I-95 ETL northbound extension program. I think that was Brian. Brian's going to talk to us about that. There he is.
Yep. Good morning, members.
Good morning, Brian.
For the record, my name is Brian Wolf. I'm Director of Project Development for the Office of Engineering and Construction. And I am here today to provide a presentation on the overpass replacements that were part of the 95 ETL northbound extension program. And also I'll refer to the attachments you have in your materials here this morning. I'm going on to slide 2. Just to provide some background information on the program. I am the director here at the White Marsh office. I oversee the ETL extension program. I'm supported by Mr. David Greenwood from CDM Smith and Mr. Michael Rothenheber from JMT. They assist me with a lot of the programmatic level functions that we need to do to keep the various contracts in sequence and moving smoothly. Below that, you'll see the 5 overpasses that we'll be touching on today. Each one of those is an individual project, with the exception of Raffel Road. But each bridge had its own designer, as well as its own contractor for construction. So we just wanted to provide that information for your review. Moving on to slide 3. This is just some general background on the overall program. You may recall that we'll be constructing roughly 10 miles of ETLs from Maryland 43 to north of Maryland 24. The 5 bridges we'll be talking about are part of this overall program. And additionally, we have some other structures involved, noise walls, some major bridges and 2 major interchanges, as well as some environmental and mitigation projects. But the 5 bridges we'll be talking about today are part of that larger overall program. On the next slide, this is just sort of an aerial view, so you can get a sense of where these 5 bridges are located along I-95. We start the furthest south is Raffel Road, and then we have Bradshaw Road, Old Joppa Road, Clayton Road, and then Abingdon Road, which is the furthest north and just beyond the Maryland 24 interchange. 4 of these bridges were all advertised as independent projects. The exception is Raffel Road, which is actually part of our mainline contract, KH 3009, that is currently in construction. And if you drive the corridor, you're very aware of that construction work going on. But that that bridge was kept within the larger project due to some scheduling and other issues. Moving on to slide 5. Next few slides, I'm going to talk about some of the design considerations that we had on these bridges. And what you see here on all of these bridge overpasses, because of the ultimate configuration of the Section 200 lane configuration for I-95, we had to raise the profile on all of these bridges. And so the graphic you see there towards the bottom of the slide, that's just to give you an idea of the profile adjustments that we did on all 5 of these bridges in order to accommodate the future ETL configuration. And that's not just the northbound, but also the future southbound ETL configuration. So we raised these bridges, and in doing so, we had to lengthen all of them from their existing conditions. So we raised them and we increased their lengths as part of the work. And then at the top of the screen there, that's just to give you an idea. We maintained a consistent cross section on all these bridges. These are all county roads. So we utilized a consistent configuration of 2 11-foot travel lanes, 2 4-foot shoulders, and then we have 2-foot barriers. And that typical section or cross section was utilized on all 5 of the bridges. Moving on to slide 6, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our maintenance of traffic. Where we could, we utilized detours, and that allowed us to shut the bridge down to traffic, which obviously gave our contractors a much easier access to the project site, allowed them to get into and do a maximum amount of work in the shortest amount of time. And this table here just gives you an idea of the time period for construction for each bridge, but also the detour route that was utilized. And the only difference would be Abingdon Road, because Harford County had emergency services located on that route. They had requested that we maintain traffic. So that bridge is actually being replaced in stages, and we're maintaining traffic on the bridge using temporary signals to allow 2-way traffic across. All the bridges were coordinated in terms of their detour routes, coordinated with SHA, the counties, our emergency services, as well as the school districts, to make sure we weren't impacting the bus routes in the area. Moving on to the next slide. This is just to provide some background on how we did the construction at each bridge. So on the left, 4 of those bridges, Bradshaw Road, Raffel Road, Old Joppa, and Clayton, we utilized the detour. So we could go from the existing condition to a full shutdown of the bridge, and that allowed the contractor to completely remove the bridge and then just construct a new bridge. And so that's, you're sort of seeing that step there. We go from the old to the new in one step. And as I mentioned, Abingdon Road was a little different because of the need for staging. And so here you see we had to do a 2-stage approach to replacing that bridge. And so that was just to provide a comparison there between the 4 bridges and then the 5th bridge. Moving on to slide 8. This is just some information on the aesthetics. We're trying to maintain a consistent aesthetic appearance in the entire corridor. And so all of these overpass bridges utilize the same type of aesthetic treatments. You can see here we used what we call a Minnesota ashlar stone. That is a form liner finish on the concrete. We utilize that on all the exposed faces, the parapets, the abutments and wing walls, as well as the piers that are in the median of I-95. They all received a staining finish on them. And then we also utilized an ornamental fencing treatment on top of the barriers for an added aesthetics. And all of the girders on these bridges are steel girders. They are haunched to add some, again, some aesthetic consistency on all these bridges. The only difference between the 5 is, again, at Abingdon Road, because of the staging, we could not utilize an arch pier, as you see in the photo here at the bottom right. We had to use a wall pier, a solid wall pier, and that was due to the staging and the complexities involved with trying to build an arch type pier in stages. That middle column that you see in that photo would have been either partially built or not at all, and it would have required false work. And so the approach there was to use a conventional wall pier that made the staging a lot simpler for construction. Moving on to the next slide. Here, I just wanted to highlight one of the elements in the design and construction that's a little different from our conventional bridges that we've been building over the years. What you see on the left and in the shaded area, all of the bridges on these overpasses, we constructed what we called semi-integral abutments. And what that means is that the back wall is actually attached to the steel girders. Conventionally, or what we used to do in the past, was the back wall was part of the abutment, and there was always a joint between that back wall and the superstructure. But of course, that joint has always been a maintenance issue for us over the years, where the seals fail, we get debris, salt water, and things like that down on the beam seat that ends up corroding the beam ends or causing issues with the bearings. And so while this approach with this semi-integral approach is nothing new, it's been out for years now, it is relatively new for us in that we're applying it in sort of a programmatic way, where all of these bridges are using this concept. And what that does, as you can see, there's no joint now behind the beams, and it's actually pushed about 20 feet out into the roadway. And so what you see in the detail to the right, we used approach slabs leading up to all of our bridges. And so on the far right there on that detail, the joint is actually back over what we call a sleeper slab. And so that's where all the movement's occurring. And so the joint seal is back there, but it's over in the roadway section so that the bridge has no open joints on it at all. So we've eliminated that potential maintenance issue in the future having leaky joints that cause other problems on our bridges. So this was something that we've implemented on all the overpasses in the program, and it's actually worked out really well for us. Additionally, you know, the semi-integrals, all the abutments are pile supported, and the piers as well. So we've been consistent with the design approach on all of the bridges, utilizing these concepts. Moving on to the slide 10, some additional design elements that we made consistent across all of the overpasses. We're using what we call corrosion resistant reinforcing, or CRR for short. And this material is a low carbon chromium steel. And so it has enhanced corrosion resistance. And while epoxy coated reinforcing has worked really well for us over the decades, it does have some drawbacks to it. It's a coating, so you need to be careful when you're handling the rebar, when you're placing it, so that you're not nicking or scratching or damaging that coating that could potentially become a point of corrosion in the future. With CRR, there is no coating. It's all in the chemical makeup of the steel. So we have a very, you know, we can get a much better service life out of these materials without the concern of potential damage to any kind of surface treatment or anything like that. In addition to that, we used elastomeric bearings. And if you're not familiar with what elastomeric bearings are, they're essentially a rubber bearing that's reinforced with thin steel sheets in multiple layers. They perform very well. They allow movement. They are easier to manufacture as opposed to, say, a steel and bronze bearing, where you have to machine surfaces to a very refined finish. These are much easier to fabricate. And for construction or for maintenance, they're also easier to replace. And to assist with that, what we did on the right side here, this large detail that shows one of our pier diaphragms, what we did, again, on all of the bridges is to account for future jacking and replacing of these bearings. And so all the diaphragms are designed not only for their permanent loads, but for a future jacking scheme to allow them to be easily jacked and the bearings to be removed and replaced. And so that detail there in the highlighted section, there's stiffeners that are located on that large diaphragm, and that's where the jacks go. And we accounted for that in the designs of these new bridges, so that in the future, it's a simple matter of putting the jacks in there and raising up the bridge to remove the bearing. Moving on to the next slide. These are just some photos of some additional aspects of our designs. We had to do some drainage improvements in some of the locations, and the photo to the left here just highlights one of the larger drainage issues that we did. And this is at Clayton Road, where in addition to the bridge replacement, we needed to provide a new culvert in the embankment to the east of Clayton Road. And we needed to size that. There was an existing culvert there. It was a single cell box. But based on future land use and things of those natures that are required by MDE, we needed to actually increase the box to a 2-cell. And that's what the photo's showing here, is that we were doing some drainage improvements to account for future land use and things like that. And so the project accommodated that additional structure work that had to be done. The photos on the right here are just some of the environmental aspects that we had to work with. We did seeding and planting at all the abutments where we did a lot of grading, and even our landscaping mix for the seeding was a wildflower mix. So you may have noticed in some of the bridges that there's been a lot of flowers along the abutments. But that was on purpose. That was all part of the environmental work that was done for the projects. Moving on to slide 12, I'm going to get into a little bit of the construction issues that we had. On all of the bridges, we had to address the 108-inch water main that is owned by Baltimore City. That water main runs essentially parallel to I-95, and its location was such that it was generally within the approach work that we had to do for each of these bridges. And so we needed to coordinate that with Baltimore City. And one of their concerns was, given the age of the water main, they were looking for essentially zero or very small increases in the loads on top of their water main. And so what we had to do, where our embankments from our approach work were increasing over top of the water main, we had to utilize the lightweight fill in order to keep the loads reduced on the water main. And so the pictures are showing some of that actual construction work that was done. And so what you see there is essentially a pad of the lightweight cementitious fill that was utilized on the 5 bridges to keep the embankment weight down over the water main. And then the detail at the bottom just shows that that's actually specific to Clayton Road. But what you're seeing there is the shaded blue is the water main, and then above it in that gray shading is the stepped lightweight fill embankment that was constructed over top of it. And again, that was to keep the weight, the additional weight from the embankment down as close to zero as possible. But in addition to even that work, we had to implement measurement, vibration, and wire break sensor systems on these projects. And so there was settlement devices that were installed, and in some locations where we could access the water main, we used like hydrophones that were actually put into the water main itself, and they were measuring sound waves for the any indication of like a wire break. The pipe itself is a pre-stressed pipe. And so the concern there was if there would be wires breaking, the pre-stressed wiring that's in the concrete would break. And so we, in some cases, utilized the specialty acoustic monitoring to ensure there was no wire breaks. And in all the projects, we have not had any issues with the monitoring triggering any warnings of any issues with the water main. So we've been very successful in mitigating any issues with that. Moving on to the slide 13. All of the work at the, when we went into the detours for the various overpasses, we did do a lot of outreach. We provided e-blasts and notifications on the websites and everything to alert the public to when the bridges were going to be shut down. There was a very specific windows established for each bridge. Most of them were 300 days. When there was a detour, it was a 300-day closure, maximum closure period. The exception was Clayton Road due to the additional work required with that culvert that I mentioned previously. That time frame was extended somewhat because of the additional structural work, but all of them had a maximum closure window. We provided notices, and in the case of the steel erection, as you see in the photo, we provided notifications of when that was going to occur, and of course we utilized our police to provide rolling closures when the girder erection was going to be crossing over top of the main line I-95. So moving on to the slide 14, these are just some of the photos of the completed bridges. 3 of the bridges are complete and open to traffic. That is the Bradshaw Road, the Old Joppa Road, and Clayton Road. And so these are just some pictures of those finished bridges. And as you can see, again, we maintain that consistent aesthetic appearance on all of the structures. Moving on to slide 15, we still have two of the bridges under construction. Abingdon Road is, I believe it's in its phase 2 or stage 2 of construction. So we're halfway there on completing Abingdon Road. And Raffel Road, I believe, is just past its halfway mark and its detour, its 300-day detour maximum closure. And I believe the abutments are complete at this point. There was some pile driving that needed to be completed at the pier, but that project or that bridge is moving along within the larger 3009 contract. So that's the information I have to present on the overpasses, and at this point, I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Well, first, thank you for that. That's sounds like we're making some good headway. So thank you for that update. I'm always excited when I see something, when you talk about lightweight fill, because that kind of appeals to the geotechnical guy in me. I think I mentioned at a previous time you presented, I'm familiar with a product up this way called Aero Aggregate. So if you ever want to learn more about that, I happen to know the guy who started that company. He was actually with ACF. You're probably familiar with ACF Environmental.
Okay.
A lot of geotextile supplier, who's since been bought by Ferguson. But anyway, he came, well, I knew him from there. But anyway, long story short, I'm happy to make intros if you think it's beneficial.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
No,
Thanks again,
it's
Brian.
nice job with it. It's an impressive project, and I'm sure it wasn't as well organized the whole way through as it looks here, but it looks great. But I'm sure you had your hard time. I mean, 108-inch water line is nothing to play around with. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. So,
Especially
it is not
108-inch water line.
and they hardly make that pipe anymore, pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. It's very rare. I mean, they used to make it right up in Cecil County. I don't think they do anymore.
Up there, up at Port Deposit where they used to take
Yeah,
it.
Price Brothers was the last owner. It was can't remember who had it before that, but anyhow, they don't really spec it on many jobs anymore. So
That's actually where they floated down from there, some of the sections of the tunnel
That's right.
from
oh really?
Port Deposit.
Well, it's a different product
Yes.
then, yeah.
Anyhow,
Mhm.
Brian, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And
It's good.
Absolutely.
watching this construction from day one since I've been on the authority, and seeing it before, I'm just wondering, Mr. Chairman, if we could maybe the rest of the board have a tour at some point.
Yeah, that would be
See,
nice.
just giving us a what you've given us is the update, but get a tour is what the areas that we could see in the different sections. I know it'd probably take a little while going to each section. I mean, from all the way from Raphael and Bradshaw all the way up to Abingdon, but I'm just saying, and where major work is being done now, 152, obviously knocking out the park and ride. So if we could, set up that, Jim, what do you think?
Hey, good morning.
Smiling on there.
Good morning, members. Jim
Morning.
Harkness, Chief Engineer. Just wanted to let you know, so I asked Brian and the team to put together this presentation sort of to whet your appetite, I guess, if you would, for an eventual field visit for the program. So I am working with Natalie on the logistics of how we can facilitate that request. So we are working on it, and we are looking to do so in the near future here.
Very good.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good thing.
Any other questions? Oh, Member Enzer had something.
I just wanted to, accolades. It's just great. Everything looks so professional, so great. It's just so nice to see something like this.
All right. Sounds like you got a unanimous, happy group. So thank you, Brian. Appreciate that, and we do look forward to visiting. I look forward to visiting any construction site. So anytime you want to take me, I'm in. So
Absolutely, we love visitors.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody. Do we have
Thank you.
Move for
anything else?
adjournment, move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Member Cox moves for adjournment.
I'll second it.
Member Gaines seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we got everybody. So, all right, well, everybody be safe. I know it's a long weekend, so I hope everything works out great on our Bay Bridge asset. And wish
Sure hope
everybody
so.
a wonderful Labor Day weekend and enjoy.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks, members.
Thank
Have a great